Hey guys, welcome back to, now I'm going to be calling it GG Gaming, because I think that's better.
Sorry, had to.
Today we have Logan with us as our co-host. Hi Logan.
Hi, how's it going?
Nobody's being replaced. We're just trying to get more people involved. So yeah. Why is your... Okay, never mind. So Logan, what you been playing lately?
I've been switching on and off between a couple of games lately. Over Christmas break, I got a copy of Bloodborne, so I've been banging my head against that repeatedly, and then I needed a dramatic break from that, so I picked up Life is Strange, because it was basically on every website's Game of the Year list, and I figured I would give it a shot.
That's exactly what I've been playing the past month.
Life is Strange?
No, Bloodborne.
Oh, Bloodborne, sorry!
I got that for Christmas and been playing it for the past month.
And you platinumed it, right?
I did.
How is that? Tell me about the platinum process. What exactly do you have to do to platinum the game? Because I know the rabbit hole goes pretty deep with the Chalice dungeons.
The Chalice dungeons weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. They're not so bad when you play with people.
Okay.
But they get harder. There's just one in particular that's really hard because it takes your health and it just cuts it in half. But
isn't that when you do an extra ritual or something?
I think you can do that, but one of the ones to get to the last one is just mandatory, cuts your health in half.
That sounds horrendous.
Yeah, and the damage you take, I think the physical damage you take gets reduced in half, and the damage you give gets reduced in half, I think. I'm not sure, but the bad thing is elemental damage you take is the same. So you get a lot of one-hit kills from enemies, which is really brutal.
Does elemental damage that you do stay the same?
I don't know the exact
science.
Yeah, I don't know behind it.
Okay.
I just know that the player has half health, takes half physical damage, but regular elemental damage, and then they start throwing in enemies that breathe fire and stuff, and you're just like, oh,
great.
God. All the bosses do some kind of elemental damage, so there's just one-hit kills everywhere. It's really bad.
But you did it, so bravo!
Somehow. The first boss was some NPC character who uses fire all the time.
Like a hunter?
Yeah, kind of like a hunter. It's the, what's his name? Keeper of the Old Lords.
Oh, I'm familiar because they reuse him a couple times, right?
Yeah. And then the second boss, which is probably the hardest Chalice dungeon boss because of the half health thing, is the watchdog of the Older Lords, that giant fire dog.
The one that vomits lava all over the place.
Yeah, and there's just one-hit kills everywhere.
Yep.
It's terrible. I had to watch this video just to get a grasp of his moves and how to dodge them. And even still, it was just hard.
That doesn't sound like fun, because he's tough when I have all my health.
Yeah. So he has that attack where he charges forward. That's a one-hit kill. I'm
just waiting for you to list all the one-hit kills.
I can't remember the other ones, but there's just a ton of them.
And he explodes after a while, too, doesn't he just start?
You just have to figure out how to read him, and even so, it's hard, because, like, if you're mid-attack, you can't cancel your attack.
Yes, I have noticed this, unfortunately.
You're just like, uh-oh, here it comes.
Changed my mind, please, I take it back.
Yeah. The thing about Bloodborne, I love Bloodborne. I think, personally, I prefer the Souls games, because...
I'm so glad we're on the same page with this.
Because I think that the Souls game... I think it's more of a personal preference. I like the mentality of holding your shield up and kind of methodically going in. And it's like staying on the defense. Whereas Bloodborne, it's more of, hey, you got to stay on the offense all the time. And you don't want to be on the offense against things that can kill you right away.
Well, I think it kind of depends on how you like to build your character, though, because if you're looking for a dex build, like, I know people who went with Dark Souls and a dex build, and these are all the people that run it with no armor on, and a soul level 1 runs, and all that crazy shit, and I had to do, a tank strength build, and wore Havel's armor the whole game, and...
Oh my god.
and muddled my way through. So Bloodborne was just a completely different note for me.
I have to admit that I abused some glitches in Demon Souls and Dark Souls.
For shame.
To level up. But, you know, I beat the game first, and then, like, on the New Game Pluses, like, New Game Plus 2 or 3 was when I found out about the glitch, and then I used it just to kind of get everything. The first one was something where, in Demon Souls, I think the character's name was Tom.
Okay.
He kind of was your storage box.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There was some kind of glitch where you give him something, and you can infinitely multiply the item you give him. So you can do that with souls, and you can just get souls.
That's kind of amazing.
But I did that, you know, on, like, New Game Plus 3 or 4, so I had already beaten the game a few times, and I was just using it to, like, finish purchasing everything. And then at that point, since I already got everything, I was like, I'll just see how high my level goes. And then I kind of screwed myself over because the game matches you with people within a certain range of your level.
Yes.
So at some point I couldn't play with people anymore, and I was like, there you go.
I mean, that happened to me in regular Dark Souls without me cheating. It's just I got really into level grinding, and I hit a point where I just wasn't dying a lot because I was wearing full Havel's armor. And
See, I like Dark Souls. I think, personally, I prefer Demon Souls.
Well, was Demon Souls your first?
Yes.
I think everyone loves their first Souls game the most.
But, see, I have a reason to, because Dark Souls wouldn't let me play with friends. They had, like, a multiple servers, so
okay.
you can only play with random people. You can't play with people you know.
Okay, so you couldn't create a party or something.
And I think the second thing that really killed it for me was you can't save while you're playing with people.
I never would have known that because I'm probably the most antisocial gamer that's ever walked the face of this earth, so I never played Dark Souls co-op.
Do you remember Blighttown in Dark Souls?
I unfortunately remember the hair loss following Blighttown.
You know how it was a huge area and there was one bonfire in the middle? The bonfires
there were two bonfires. There was one on the bottom and then there was one on the ledge.
When you start from the hole where the previous boss was, Gaping Dragon...
Yeah.
And you head down, maybe like
the ladder.
Halfway through Blighttown is a save point.
Yes, I'm familiar.
I was playing with somebody, and I couldn't access the bonfire because I was playing with somebody, so I couldn't save. So we got all the way to the, I must have spent like an hour or two, and we got all the way to the boss. I don't know how it's pronounced,
Quelaag. Whatever her name is.
People like to call her Kellogg's.
Kellogg's, okay. I call her Queequeg, but...
Well,
anything's acceptable.
We died against her, so I lost all that progress.
I mean, doesn't it autosave, though? You just lose... lose your souls.
I think you keep your items, but I was just like, what the fuck? It's like I couldn't... you just mean
you weren't there anymore, because you don't actually lose progress. You just get bounced back to the last bonfire you rested at.
I couldn't go back to where... Because I couldn't hit a save point. I couldn't hit a save point when you're...
So you loaded in the depths instead of in Blighttown. Right.
Yeah, it's like I went all the way back to where the last boss was, and I was like, well, there goes the past hour or so.
That's not fun at all.
So I was like,
it took me forever to even find that bonfire, so...
I was just like, well, I guess I'm not going to play with people anymore. Because, the game punishes you for playing with people because you can't save. It's like, that's the worst punishment.
Well, the game punishes you for playing the game. The whole point is that Dark Souls is just like, screw you.
That's the thing. Demon Souls punishes you, but it's fair. And I feel like when they made Dark Souls, they were like, all right, we're going to make this hard. And then I think they just made it difficult for the sake of being difficult.
Yeah, but that was also kind of... I remember when there were advertisements for Demon Souls on, because I was working at GameStop at the time, and they just played incessantly on the television in the GameStop, and it was just like, this game is gonna, own your face, be prepared, this is, the hardest game that, anyone has ever made, and
maybe
blah, blah,
if you
blah,
don't
blah.
know how to play games.
I don't know, I played Dark Souls, just regular Dark Souls first, and it was a magical experience, and I had played Demon Souls a little bit when it first came out, but I was 16 years old, 17 years old, and I just got pissed off and said, screw this. I don't have the patience for this.
See,
I remember getting stuck on the Tower Knight because I just was getting hit by... My problem was I was staying far away and I just kept getting hit by the ranged magic attacks that he has, and it just wasn't
They kind
happening.
of copy-pasted that boss for... the concept behind it, I feel, for... one of the bosses in Bloodborne. How far did you get in Bloodborne? Because I don't want to spoil anything.
I'm stuck in Nightmare of Menses.
Oh, so you passed it already. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for the viewers anyway, but it's not really a spoiler anyway. I was just saying, I don't know how
Spoiler
surprised you
tag,
want to
stop
be.
listening.
But
if
it's
you
not
don't
it's
wanna
not
know.
a spoiler. It's just one of the bosses that you already fought is set up in the same way. I think it's the One Reborn. I think his name is, where he's just like, it's a giant boss in this arena, and there are enemies lined up at the top,
Oh
just
yeah,
like throwing
there's
magic at you,
the
and you
bell
could take a
ringers,
stairwell up and get rid of them. And that's the same idea in the Tower Knight, where there are archers, and you can climb the stairwell and take out the archers.
That just like blew my 16-year-old mind, and I couldn't handle it.
That was a hard boss. But
And it was really early on in the game, and I think it told me that the learning curve on the game was too difficult for me at the time.
see, there were only a couple of moments in Demon Souls where I would almost call it cheap. I don't want to say cheap because it was an overall fair game, but there were a couple of cheesy moments in that game. And I think most of those moments were a few bosses. Flame Lurker, if you remember.
Okay. Is that the
did you
one when
beat
you're
Demon
in the
Souls?
mines? I didn't. I didn't get that far in Demon
Flame
Souls.
Lurker is the first or second boss.
It's in the mines?
In
you
the
go down in the
mines.
mines, yeah.
He's just like, he's really tough. He's doable. I mean, I beat him like 5 times in a row.
And then you found a way to cheese him.
No, I discovered like cheesiness on the first time because there was a stairwell, but it didn't always like to abuse him to like kind of get him stuck. But it didn't always work. So I think when I beat him, I actually just beat him like fair. It was just really hard. The second cheesy boss was Maneater in the Tower of Latria, I think.
No, I haven't gotten there.
Okay, basically it's this gargoyle thing.
Okay.
And I think the worst part about it is the arena, because it's like a bridge and like a small rooftop and another bridge.
So is it easy to fall off?
Yeah,
or?
basically fall off. And that's like the worst part about the boss. But once you get his health halfway down, a second one comes in and you have to fight 2 of them.
Great. So it's like the bell gargoyles in Dark Souls.
Yeah, they're smaller, but they fly around, and unless you have magic, you're not going to touch them until they land. And they kind of do this I think they did this diving attack, and so you can just fall off. It's just like just this whole situation of that boss was set up to screw you over.
Whole game is set up to screw you over. I stand by this
not
assertion.
The whole game.
I stand by my assertion.
I don't know. I also think the Dragon God was kind of cheesy until you figure out that it's more like a race against the environment sort of thing. It's kind of like, you remember the Bed of Chaos in Dark Souls? It's
Well,
kinda
that
like
was
that,
just
where you're
probably
not
one of the
really
worst
fighting-
boss fights ever.
What?
That was probably one of the all-time worst boss fights.
Because it's just like, oh, you gotta go here. Oh, the floor opened up on you. It's like, you can't predict that. It's just, But the Dragon God was the same kind of idea where you're fighting the environment and not the boss.
Yeah, that's not... Puzzle
Except
bosses are a weird thing.
They did it right in Demon Souls, though.
Oh, and they did it wrong in Dark Souls?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I can't even argue with that. As much as I want to back up my baby, I can't defend that boss fight because it was so bad.
It was a bad boss fight. I think that in one of the patches they had to add a bonfire because there's like, you're gonna die on that boss. And
you basically had to run from the lava area back to that boss. Yeah,
constantly. It's just because it was a trial and error boss.
And one thing that was really cool that I appreciated is it did save your progress, whereas every other boss fight, it didn't remember.
Did it?
It didn't care.
I can't remember.
It did because there was something you had to hit on either side of the boss.
Its arms, and open up the center area, but it's just
and then jump down there. So it remembered whether or not which side you got, and it kept it open for you because it took me 5 tries to even jump in. Like I couldn't aim correctly when I was trying to jump in the hole.
It wasn't fair because it was just like you had to know where to step.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you stepped on this floor that's falling apart. It's like, well, you gotta go back to the lava area. It's like, no.
I mean, that whole point in Dark Souls was kind of a weird thing because the lava area immediately before that, they were reusing boss monsters as regular creatures, and it kind of seemed like the lava area and those runes were just kind of a crap out, in my opinion.
Bloodborne did that.
Don't tell me that. Shh.
No, I mean that they take some bosses, earlier bosses, and make them enemies. But not so often. I think there's maybe like a couple, and they kind of treat them as a big enemy that you can pretty much avoid anyway.
Okay.
But did you play the DLC, the Old Hunters?
No, I actually never bought the DLC, which I'm going to end up regretting. Because
which is way harder than the actual game.
Is it like Dark Souls in that you have to play through part of the game and then you can go to the area that the DLC unlocked?
Yeah, but they made it a lot easier to figure out how to access.
Okay.
Because Dark Souls DLC was, well, you gotta do all this crap first towards the end of the game before you can even access it. Where Bloodborne, I believe it's when you get to the Cathedral Ward, which is in the beginning of the game.
That is pretty early, yeah.
I don't know if you have to do something first, but when you buy the DLC in the Hunter's Dream, which is kind of like your hub world, those messengers on the stairs, they appear. When I bought the DLC, I was already pretty far, so I don't know. You have to do something first to make them appear.
Oh,
but
so you think you might have done it already?
They give you an item, and as long as you're holding the item, then right outside the Cathedral Ward, there's this giant amygdala, like attached to the outside of the church.
Well, that's there anyhow.
Yeah, but when he grabs you, while you have this item in your inventory, it teleports you to this
new area.
So.
That's cool. I'm assuming I should do that before I go on to New Game Plus, then, if it's difficult.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because that was the mistake I made.
That should probably be the last thing you do. It's actually harder than anything in the main game.
Fantastic. Things to look forward to.
And a lot of people said that online, and then I was reading somebody said that it favors strength builds.
Which is weird because it's kind of difficult to have a strength build.
Yeah, I mean, the last boss in the DLC was really cheesy. Really cheesy. Probably the cheapest boss in the entire game.
Well noted. I am excited that there is more weapon variety in the DLC, because like I said, it is hard to do a strength build because there's almost no weapons that scale really well with strength.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Except for the Kirk hammer.
I want to say there's a couple, but I feel like there's probably only one throwback item, weapon from the Souls games. You know, the Moonlight Sword?
Yes.
There's a trick weapon in Bloodborne called the Holy Moonlight Sword?
Ludwig's Holy Blade?
No, it's actually like the real one.
Oh, cool.
He actually had. Or a different version. I don't know the exact lore behind it, because you know how the Souls games, their lore is always up in the air.
They're not up front with you, yeah.
But he uses the weapon in the DLC. That's not really a spoiler. He's the first boss in the DLC, Ludwig.
Okay, and that's pretty cool. I hear his name enough.
Oh my god. What an ass raping you get from him.
Things to look forward to. You're just making me... It's sad, but when you say it's really friggin' difficult, that just makes me want to play it more.
Well, maybe it's good for me to say that, because if you find it easier, then you'll be like, oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. Because maybe it's better to be... maybe it's better to have that in your mindset that you're going to have a hard time and then have an easier time than thinking you're going to have an easy time and actually having a hard time. Yeah?
Set the bar high and end up...
set the bar high.
Okay, I'll take it.
But my god, they really just throw it at you. The first boss.
I mean, I think they think that's what people want from the DLC for these kinds of games. I think there's a special kind of person that is enough of a masochist to play a game in the Souls series or to play Bloodborne. I would say Bloodborne's a tiny bit more casual than some of the Souls games. It's harder to screw up your character build in Bloodborne, in my opinion.
I disagree.
Really?
I think that because of the way the game is played, in terms of being more offensive than defensive compared to the Souls games, I feel like the Souls games are more of, do a better time of kind of beginning, like kind of stepping your toes into the series. But then again, I think it really comes down to how the player plays. If you're more of a defensive player, you'll find the Souls games easier. If you're more of an offensive player, you'll find Bloodborne to be more your Speed, yeah, I guess speed.
Sure.
um,
But yeah, it's a particular kind of play style that it caters to.
Yeah,
and if you're not used to it, it's hard to...
I never use the guns. I just want to have a shield.
I have the same problem. I see a lot of people, because I've watched a few videos of playthroughs, well, not entire playthroughs. I like to watch, when I play games, I like to watch up to where I am, so I can see not only if I've missed something, but like if I completely bombed on something, or just different ways to approach things. So I've watched enough people play areas of that game where they just had the timing on that gun down perfectly.
Yeah,
and I had the same problem with parrying.
I can't parry, so I gave up.
I can't do it, yeah.
My friend is like, really? I parry all the time. It's so easy. I'm just like, it doesn't work. I can't parry. So it just comes down to, again, I think the type of person you are, the type of gamer you are. Because my friend plays a lot of fighting games. He knows in terms of like when certain frames start up.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Just parrying is easy for him. So he just parries the whole game. And I'm just like, I can't parry. So I built up my arcane, and there's 3 hunter tools, which are basically your spells. I mean, I know,
I have them. I have the old hunter bone.
Yeah.
The augur of Ouroboros, whatever his name is.
Her name. She's a boss that you'll see.
Oh, good to know. And then there's the one that makes the tentacles come out of your arm, right?
That's the augur of Abriatus.
Then there's one that adds arcane to your weapon.
Oh,
what is
something
that?
Empty phantasm shell?
That's it. Okay.
I mean, I know you know this, but I'm saying this, for anybody listening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That it's kind of like your spells of the game, and they use your bullets instead of a magic meter. So, kind of you can use your gun or that, or both. So, I kind of built up my arcane and decided to use that instead of the gun because I just couldn't use the gun. It got to the point where I walked around with the hunter's torch instead of a gun because I just never used the gun.
Was the torch effective at all for kind of interrupting enemies, or? I
don't know because I just gave up on parrying.
Got it.
But some enemies, some beasts are scared of fire. Mm-hmm. So, unless you've noticed already, some enemies, some of the beasts, like in Old Yarnum, they kind of go like this. Like they kind of put their hands above their head. I've seen that. And I wasn't sure at the time why, but I think I read something that kind of made me think that they're scared of fire. And when in one of the loading screens, it says something about certain enemies being scared of fire. I'm like, oh, that makes sense now,
Oh, and if you were holding the torch, yes, that would make sense. I don't know. I think it might have happened at the point in the game where I started playing with blood gems and I applied fire to my weapon, and then I accidentally set myself on fire in a pool of oil and jars, and it was traumatizing, and I'll never put fire on my weapon again.
Set yourself on fire in oil if you have fire on your weapon?
You know those jars full of oil? I hit one with my fire weapon, and it was horrifying. The words that came out of my mouth at that moment were horrifying. I could not have been more angry.
That sucks.
I went in and I was like, oh yeah, I've got this fire sword, life's gonna be good. No siree.
Ah, man. What weapon are you using?
I'm using Ludwig's Holy Blade right now.
I switch between 3 weapons in that game. First I use the Kirkhammer.
I didn't like the Kirkhammer.
No?
No, the sword is too fast and doesn't do enough damage, and the hammer is too heavy and still doesn't do enough damage.
The small one is to get in quick hits, and the hammer part of it is like for big damage. Okay. Then I switched to Ludwig's Holy Blade, which was awesome.
Yes. And the transformation is so badass.
Oh yeah, it's just a giant sheath. Like the giant blade, you just stick it in the sheath and pull it out.
Yeah, and if you're like mid-attack when you switch, you do this like weird combo attack when you switch.
And after I got it in the DLC, I used that Moonlight sword, whatever it's called. Which reminded me what I was going to say. In the Souls games, that sword was known for just breaking through shields.
Yes.
But since there's no shields in this game, instead it focuses on using your bullets. And it shoots beams, which is pretty cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So.
That sounds like fun.
And it increase the power of it with your arcane. And so I had kind of a strength arcane build.
Okay.
And so I was like, this is perfect. So I just always use that sword.
Yeah, especially if you were using those hunter tools, because I think you need to have arcane leveled pretty high to use them in the first place.
Which reminds me, the other thing I was going to say, I just keep going on tangents.
Go for it.
they introduced 3 new hunter tools in the DLC. One of them, which I use all the time, is called Black Sky Eye, which is basically your soul arrow or soul ray of the Souls games. It's just like a beam that's just devastating. So I basically use that and Augur of Abradus all the time.
That sounds OP.
You'd think so, until you fight bosses that it doesn't matter.
Well, all the bosses, it's like you're just a thorn in their side. They just brush off whatever you do to them.
What is this ant?
Basically, and they're all huge. Well, almost all of them. There's a handful that aren't, but
small
just the sheer size of the bosses is intimidating in that game.
Basically, it got to the point where, since I found the Souls games easier, like for my playstyle, I'm not saying they're easier. For me, the Souls games were
Gotta watch what you say about the Souls games, man.
Oh yeah, they're not easy. I mean, like for me, for the way I play the Souls games, for Bloodborne, I found myself needing a lot more help from just other players. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. You know,
I'm not judging you, I promise.
There's too many bosses where I was just like, I feel like I just can't get in there. You know,
the one time I've gotten help in Bloodborne, it wasn't with a boss battle. It was when you go to like Yargol Unseen Village for the second time.
The second time.
And there's all the amygdalas on the buildings, and there's bell ringing ladies everywhere, and it's just like you're just constantly being barraged by enemies, and you can't even stop to breathe.
When I played the game the second and third time to get to get all the endings, I just realized how much of that game is optional. I took like 5 hours to beat the entire game in one run.
Yeah, but when you know it's your first time playing through, you want to make a point to see everything, do everything, but I mean, like, collect everything.
Once I had already gotten everything in the first playthrough, my second and third playthrough was basically just run past everything. And
is it fun to play if you just run past everything?
Yeah, I guess. It's just kind of like, haha, look how fast I did this. Yeah, it's like, see ya.
But I could see how that would be rewarding after dying to them over and over and over again.
I don't have to fight you. Go fuck yourself.
I'm better than that.
Yeah. And I was like, I already destroyed you in my first playthrough. I don't have to fight you again.
If you just stayed dead, this wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about New Game Plus is all the areas you've been to, you can't go back to again. You know, it's like starting over. I mean, you have to get up to them again.
Oh, yeah.
Which it only becomes a problem when you want to play multiplayer and like join someone else's game. It's like, well, I can't join your game because I'm not up to that in my New Game Plus
really?
Yet.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's just like I have to get up to it in my game in order for me to help you again. You know?
That's much less fun. But with the Chalice dungeons, it's not like that, right? Anyone can join any Chalice dungeon.
Right. The thing about the Chalice dungeons, since they're kind of like an extra thing to the game, they don't stack in difficulty with New Game Pluses. Thank God.
That's interesting.
So where the main game gets harder, the Chalice dungeons are separate from the game, where they have a set difficulty and they won't get harder. So you can be on New Game Plus 10 if you can get up that far, and it's going to be the same difficulty as it was the older games, which means at that point you're probably so strong you'll destroy everything in the Chalice dungeons.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think I'm 209. I left off level 209.
Jeez. I'm like 75 or 6 right now, and it's slow going because I hit a point. I think it was when I was in Yargol Unseen Village again. I just kept dying. I couldn't retain any of my blood echoes, and there was just I stagnated. No leveling.
The Chalice dungeons are amazing for leveling up.
Well, that's where I'm grinding right now, and it's interesting because I know you just have to do the Pnumerian chalices to get the platinum, but there's also like the Hintertomb.
Yeah, but it gets to the point where you can't open up new Pnumerian chalices without ritual materials from the other dungeons.
Oh, really? Okay, that's
like
good to know.
Like one or two of them. So I was like, I think it was after the lower Pnumerian or after the defiled one. At one point, I was just like, well, I don't have this ritual material. Where do I get it? And it was like from the first Loran chalice. I was like, oh, okay, so I gotta actually do the other ones.
Yeah, because I've been futzing around with Hintertomb, and now it's starting to get too hard for me. So
really, Hintertomb wasn't too bad.
I have the second. I think I'm in lower Hintertomb chalice, and it's starting to get. I can't get past the boss.
Pnumerian is the only one that has a lot of layers. Hintertomb, I think, only has Hintertomb and lower Hintertomb.
Oh, so I'm almost done with
Loran
this?
has Ailing Loran and lower Ailing Loran, I think. I might be missing one or two. And then
and there's the like
the eyes
chalices
or whatever is
yeah.
just one chalice. It's just eyes.
Oh, huh.
Now every single chalice has a sinister version of it,
Okay.
which is a root chalice, which means that the root ones are like randomly generated.
Sure.
But in terms of the ones that the game has preset for you, there's like 2 Hintertomb, 2 Loran, and 1 Eyes, and I think 7 Thumeru.
Interesting.
7? There's Thumeru, Central Thumeru, Lower Thumeru, I think Defiled, and maybe Great.
I don't know any better, so I'm
So I
just
think
going to
it's
nod my
5,
head
not
and
7.
assume you got this.
I think it's 5, not 7, but the last boss is actually not too bad for the Thumeru dungeons, but I didn't fight her by myself.
Oh, I think I know who she is because I got spoilers,
Interestingly,
but...
for the lore, like I really want to know the lore more so, because the last boss in the Child's dungeon, her name is Yarnum, and that's the name of the city.
That is
so
pretty
you're
cool.
just like, huh? It's like Yarnum, Thumerian Queen, and you're like, wait a second, what? So it's like, I really want to know the lore now.
I bet you can find some YouTube videos that talk about the
there
lore,
are.
because I've seen a couple good ones about random things. Like, the lore about Nurse Iofesca is really friggin' cool.
Yeah, I actually was pronouncing her name incorrectly for a long time until I spoke to her and she said to tell people to come back to her clinic, and she said her name, and I was like, oh, I've been saying her name wrong the whole time.
I bet I've been pronouncing half that game wrong.
Yeah, there's 2 confusing pronunciations in that game. Can you guess what they are?
Everything?
Well, the one we just talked about being one of them.
Yarnum? Or
No,
Iofesca?
Yeah, how do you pronounce it?
I think it's Iofesca, and I want to say Iofesca, and I know it's not.
See, I was pronouncing it as, like, Iosefka, but it's actually Yusefka.
Yusefka, okay.
Okay, because she says, and tell people to come to Yusefka's clinic or something. I'm like, oh, that's how you pronounce it. I didn't know
I'll
till,
forget
like,
in a day,
New Game
then.
Plus or New Game Plus 2, where I was like, oh, okay, now I know your name.
Were you sending people to her, or were you sending people to the chapel?
I actually didn't get her to tell me about the clinic until New Game Plus. Like,
Gotcha.
I missed that opportunity. So I was telling everybody to go to the chapel. And then I told the murderer to go to the chapel, and he started killing people. I was like, no.
Spoilers! Not for me, but
No, you passed that part already.
I am past that point. I was mad. I
Don't
was
send
pissed.
that guy.
I was pissed.
You'll find this guy. All right, guys. You'll find this guy leaning over a bunch of dead bodies in the Forbidden
It's in the woods, yeah.
Do not send him to the chapel. Send him to Yusefka's clinic, because she'll experiment on him and he'll die. However, if you fight him, he'll drop a rune. I think it's like I don't remember something.
You could fight him either way. You could fight him once he kills her people, or he drops the same thing if you kill him after
you send him to see, my first playthrough, I sent him to the chapel ward, cathedral ward, and the old lady died. I was like, no, you
that's what happened
son
to
of
me.
a bitch. So
But then
went
I
out
killed
there
him. I took my vengeance.
Yeah, me too. But I found him really difficult. Until I kind of lured him, because the enemies don't go into the ward, so he wouldn't come in. Yeah, so I was like right in that alcove and just like poking at him. And funny enough, like I was still having trouble. I was just constantly kept reloading, or I kept dying. And one of the enemies with the sack bag walked.
Yeah.
And it was like the 2 of them, and he killed the murderer in his beast form.
Really?
I was like, ha ha ha, that's great.
Oh
He swung something, because he was almost dead.
He swings his bag.
Yeah, he was almost dead. So actually, I think he went in with his fist, and he killed him for me. And I was
That's so awesome.
my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, I call those dudes the purse snatchers, because I think it makes me giggle, because they carry the big sack around with them.
I call them what do I call it? Like something with a sack. Or I think I call their attack sack attack, but I don't know what I don't remember what I called them, if I even called them anything. There's probably something stupid like
I think
sack
they're called
bastards
kidnappers or
sack
something like that, though.
I don't know. I was just like, you asshole. I don't remember if I had a name for them, but their sack
There's
attack
some
was
shit. They're horrendous.
sack attack. Those guys. I remember the first time they grab you and teleport you to Yarugul, and I'm like, what? Where am I?
I wasn't expecting it.
No.
I was just going about my business, and now I'm somewhere completely different. I did not intend for this. And then I couldn't figure out if it was staged or not, like if you were supposed to be kidnapped by them and that's how you got there.
Yeah,
or...
which it was, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I think it could be any one of them, though. Like, it's not like you have to die to that one particular purse snatcher. It's basically any of them that... Called.
Oh, the second name that has confusing pronunciation was the second boss, but first mandatory boss. Father...
Oh, man.
How did you pronounce his name?
Gascon.
That's pretty close. It's
okay.
Gascon.
Okay.
Or I think there's two ways to pronounce it because his daughter pronounces it a certain way.
She says his name?
I think she says the name. Which I had to read online or watch the video just because I wanted to know how to pronounce it. And I think the widely accepted pronunciation is Gascon.
Okay. I don't like saying Gascon.
But it's kind of like Gascon from...
Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
There you go, Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
So I'll take it. It's French.
Yeah.
It looks French.
It's very European. It's very Yarnum. I also didn't know. I was wondering why, if you teleport back to Central Yarnum later on in the game, there's like a random beast right there by the lantern.
Interesting.
And I realized, I didn't know this till like my third playthrough, that right by that lantern is a window where you could talk to some guy.
And
I think
know exactly
that's supposed to be
about.
him.
Yeah, he turns. He starts to tell you he's not feeling well.
Yeah, I think that's him.
Yeah, and his window's bust out, and the rest of the game it's closed.
I didn't even notice. I never noticed that window until like the third game.
Did you never talk to him? Or
no, I don't think I ever talked to him.
Oh my god, he gives you like a flamethrower if you talk to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I had to buy that because I missed out on that.
Haha.
So whatever. But
the more you know.
Yeah. Now you know.
I mean, it's hard to think to talk to random windows in the game, but any window with a lantern outside of it. Any window with a lantern outside of it has like a lantern that's lit has an NPC you can talk to.
Did you talk to the prostitute?
Yes, I got her to come to the church or whatever.
The guy across from her, you have to tell him the opposite of where you want to send him.
Interesting.
Because he doesn't believe you. So he asks where you told, I think her name was Ariana, where you tell Ariana to go. And if you tell him Yusefka's clinic, he goes to Chapel Ward. And if you tell him, or I keep saying Chapel, but it's Cathedral Ward. And if you, or no, I keep saying Chapel because it's Chapel Odin.
And I want to say Chapel because it's
a chapel.
It's a chapel, yeah.
And, or Odin Chapel. Not Chapel Odin. Odin Chapel.
Yes.
It's like the same thing. But, and if you tell him to go there, then he goes to Yusefka's clinic. Which is interesting.
He likes to be contrary, I guess.
Yeah, because he just doesn't believe you.
He's a rebel.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to listen to anything you have to say.
Did you get his sweaty clothes?
I don't think I talked to him, now that you're telling me this, because I don't remember sending someone...
You have to talk to him like 3 or 4 times, and then he's like, alright, where did you tell her to go?
Oh, well, if he's not dead, I'll send him, but I'm pretty sure everybody's dead at this point.
Yeah, you get some things for killing some NPCs that you would not want to kill. So, like, before I went on to my New Game Plus, I was just like, let me just kill you guys and get it over with. Like, the guy in Odin Chapel who says to bring people to Odin Chapel, if you kill him, you get a rune. And I was just like, I would have never killed him because I didn't want to kill him.
Well, what's really interesting, I don't know how spoilery I can get.
I don't know, it depends on what you're going to talk about.
I was going to talk about Yosefka's clinic.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's really a spoiler.
Okay, well...
Depends on what you're going to say.
When you send people there, you can eventually get into her clinic, you can kill them there and they'll drop the same items.
Yeah, they drop the items that you have. You know how to get the true ending, right?
I do, but I went to her clinic too early, so I think I have to go for a different route. I know it's still possible, because there's 2 different ways.
The way to get the true ending, this isn't really a spoiler, because it's just, this is how you get it.
There's 4 and I need 3.
Yeah, you only need 3 of this item called 1/3 umbilical cord. If you consume 3 of them, it makes a hole. But you do that, and then you have to refuse the last boss you fight gives you a choice, and you have to choose refuse and fight him. And then, if you've already consumed before that fight the 3 1/3 umbilical cords, then you fight the true last boss.
I'm trying to decide if I want to go for that ending the first time, because I have a thing about, the integrity of the first playthrough.
See, I think that you should, because if each game's going to get harder, if each playthrough is going to get harder, you might as well have done, like, the worst of it in terms of 2 battles.
Fair enough.
Because then it'll get harder. Although if you die against the last boss, you don't have to fight the one before him again.
That's
good.
Really a relief. That's a big relief. That'd be kind of horrible if they did that to you.
I used all 20 of my blood vials on the last boss. I don't know. My friend who could parry like a parry god, he's like, "Oh, the last boss was so easy." I was like, "Well, I can't parry, so I had a hard time."
I mean, nothing's easy when you can't parry. Everything gets like 10 times harder if you can't parry.
And that last boss for the true ending has an attack that just brings your HP down to like 1, but then he staggers for a long time. So you can heal, except I couldn't heal because I used all my blood vials.
Whoopsies.
So when I obviously died, I was like, I better not have to fight the guy before him again. And I didn't have to, so I was like, yes.
Small victories. It's little things like this that we appreciate.
So I did that one first. The second one I did where I didn't consume the umbilical cord, but I still refused and had to fight the last boss because you still have to fight. So that was the second one I did. And then the last ending I got was when you accept and you don't have to fight him. So I did like my first playthrough. I had to fight the 2 last bosses. The second playthrough, since it was harder, I just fought one. And the third one, since it was even harder, I didn't have to fight either.
That's interesting.
So I thought that was a smart way of going about it.
Yes, that was probably the most efficient way you could have done it without causing yourself emotional duress.
Yeah. Although I like to think I probably could have done it. But you're on Nightmare of Mensis?
Yes.
How far are you?
Well, I'm stuck where you fight the other hunter after the spiders. You go through...
on that bridge?
Yes, the one on the bridge. He has like a scatter shot, and I can't... I can't beat him right now.
The boss for that... on New Game Plus abuses the hell out of Augur of Abritus and this move called A Call Beyond, which throws out a bunch of beams and targets you. And he practically one-hit kills you constantly. And then I discovered by myself, and then I guess it's widely known, but there's a certain area you could stand and just cheese him to death.
Cheesy cheese,
and I'm like, yes, I don't have to deal with your one-hit kills. But
we'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Did you do any of the other optional areas yet?
The
Lost Castle of Canehurst.
I did do Canehurst. It took me a long time to beat the boss there
and Nightmare Frontier is the other one.
I also did Nightmare Frontier, so we were good on both of those.
You can get a blood rock in Nightmare of Mensis.
Yes, I'm also... I have my eyes peeled for that because I know it's coming up. I don't know exactly where.
There's a cage elevator that you activate. You know in the very beginning when that
you can go
keeps
right or
causing
left?
you frenzy and you can go left or right?
Yeah.
If you go to the right, there's a lantern over there. It's called Murgo's Loft Base.
Sure.
If you teleport there. Actually, right after where you're up to, the bridge, when you pass that guy... there's a bunch of enemies that actually don't attack you unless you attack them. In there, so you don't have to worry about that. Except for when you progress a bit further, then they start attacking you. But right when you walk in, the ones that are by the entrance won't attack you. You go down the stairs, and to the right, as soon as you walk in, you can activate the elevator to go back down to Murgo's Loft Base.
Oh, okay.
So you can it's a shortcut.
I love the shortcuts in this game.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're really clever.
And where that lantern is, there's a cage where you get even further. it'll bring you down, and you can take like a cage elevator. The second one of those, you can actually walk out of while it's coming up.
Sure.
Into an alcove, and you could cross this bridge with those brain ladies that are terrible.
The ones that give you frenzy?
Yes. There's like 3 of them.
Great.
I think the first time I got past it by just running and healing.
Okay.
In New Game Plus, I don't think that works very well. I think you take too much frenzy. But,
gotta have those sedatives, man.
Well, the thing about using a sedative is you have to stop to use it.
Yes.
And if you're running past them,
I could see how
they'll
that's
attack you.
Yes.
So I was watching somebody do it on YouTube. I'm like, how do you do this? And they just ran past them and just healed themselves. And they took the frenzy and they healed themselves and kept running. And I was like, okay, that actually sounds better. So I did that to get past them. In the boss that you got to get up to, there's a key and a cage in that arena.
Okay.
So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yes, sir. I'm on it.
Yes.
I take this thing very seriously.
We've talked quite a bit about Bloodborne.
Yes, I feel like this has become the Bloodborne podcast.
That's not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing at all.
Have you played anything else lately?
I mentioned that I was playing Life is Strange.
Oh, yeah.
I've been poking away at that.
I heard good things about that.
I have mixed emotions about it right now. There's a lot of teen angst, which I should have been prepared for, knowing what I knew about the game, but I can't help but roll my eyes at some of the writing, because I feel like even teenagers don't talk this angsty sometimes.
It's kind of like what people think the new generation of teenagers talk about.
Yes, but it's also very self-aware, and it has a lot of references to pop culture, and there's like a big Twin Peaks reference pretty early in the game. And
what's that?
There's a mirror in a bathroom when you go to a diner in the game, and it says "Fire Walk With Me" on the mirror.
But what's Twin Peaks?
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant what the Twin Peaks reference. Twin Peaks is like this early 90s cult classic television show that only ran for 2 seasons, and then it got canceled, but it like ended on this cliffhanger, and it just ruined everyone's lives because it was like the thing to talk about. Not that I was alive then, I've just read about it and I watched the whole series because it's actually really enjoyable until, you know, it just ends abruptly. But it basically just shattered everyone's water cooler talk when the show ended and nothing was resolved and nothing was answered. And
yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's pretty cool. It's a slow burn, but it gets there.
Okay, fair enough. I've heard really good things about that game, so I might have to check it out, but I have too many games on the back burner that I need to play.
What's on your back burner? What's in your queue?
Oh, God. My queue. First of all, I have a game I bought a long time ago that I never played, and I feel real bad about it, and I'm like, eventually I'll get to it, is Epic Mickey. My friend constantly makes fun of me. He's like, so, when are you going to play Epic Mickey? And it's not that I don't want to play it. I just don't really play my Wii anymore now that I have a Wii U. And I'm just like, I'm probably not going to get around to it.
Does the Wii U not play Wii games?
I think it does, actually. So I have no excuse.
So you have no excuse, yeah.
But I don't know if it requires the upgraded Wii Remote Plus. I don't know. I know Skyward Sword does, and that's why I haven't played Skyward Sword yet.
Okay.
But I don't have a Wii Remote Plus in case I do need that. Otherwise, I just haven't. One of my gripes about the Wii Remote was having to use batteries. And I was just like, I wish I could recharge this.
I mean, you could use, just to play devil's advocate, you could use rechargeable batteries in your Wiimote. I know I just blew your mind, but...
Whoa! I guess I can. I don't know. I just like...
It is nice to just be able to plug in your controller and forget about it.
The Wii U is better.
In many ways, in more than one way.
But aside from that, I have a queue of games for my PS4 now that I got for Christmas. I beat Bloodborne finally. I have Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, which I need to take a break from Souls after playing Bloodborne. It's like... Nothing against it. It's just like I can't jump right into another one right after playing another one.
Have you played Dark Souls 2 yet, or have you?
No.
Okay.
I have it for the PS3. I'd never played it because I was like playing other stuff.
Sure.
And I felt bad. I'm like, oh, I gotta play this, but so I have that. I have Splatoon, which I have to play.
I've heard such good things about Splatoon.
I know. DMC Definitive Edition,
Okay.
which everyone has their own opinion on that game, but it's like a love it or you hate it. But
I think DMC games are always fun, even if they're not amazing.
I know, but like this one is a reboot, and I think if you treat it as an alternate universe where the first one is not done with, it's just like, oh hey, it's kind of like Marvel and Ultimate Marvel.
Okay.
Where that's how I treat it, where it's like, Marvel's still going, and then Ultimate Marvel came out, and that was still going. And so it's like, just because DMC came out didn't mean Devil May Cry was done. I mean, maybe they're not going to make another Devil May Cry game, but that doesn't mean they can't. So
Fair
I just
enough.
treated it as, like, I think a lot of people were treating it as, hey, Devil May Cry's over, so this is terrible. Like, why they have this new one? And I treated it as, like, it's a side story, kind of like, it's just like another universe in the Devil May Cry genre.
Why not more? Just give me more. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, so I heard from a friend that was amazing, and I've heard around that it was amazing, so I'm just like, alright, that's cool. I want to buy, I haven't bought it yet, but I want to buy the digital special edition of Devil May Cry 4.
Okay.
And is there one other game? Oh, the PS4 I got came with the Uncharted collection.
Have you played the Uncharted games already,
no,
or this?
I have not.
Okay.
So, but my problem is some games coming out that I really want to play that I pre-ordered, like, in the beginning of February.
What games?
Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4.
Okay.
Because Naruto's my favorite manga, and I love the Ultimate Ninja Storm games, so I'm just
Are they just like fighter games? Or I never understood what they are, because I've never played one.
Oh, well, that's why you don't understand. Yeah, it's a fighting game, but it's more in a 3D arena than, side to side.
Okay.
So it's more, I would say it's more of an action fighter, I guess. I mean, are you familiar with Dissidia? Final
Yes.
Fantasy Dissidia?
Yes.
I haven't played it, but it seems like it's got the same type of feel to it, where you're in an arena. But,
And so it's not on a 2D plane, it's more...
right.
Okay.
It's a 3D plane. And it's not 3D plane in terms of, like, Tekken, but where you're, like, locked on a 2D plane, but it's actually, like, a 3D plane.
That sounds interesting.
So, but I think, personally, I think they do a great job at it because you can dash up to your opponent. So it doesn't come down to the problem of like, oh, you missed because, you just weren't facing them correctly. Mm-hmm. But you press X to dash up to them. And it's like, well, okay, now I can start attacking. So I find that much easier to play than like Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi, where I think they should have never strayed away from the 2D plane if they couldn't get it like that. I don't know.
I'm going to have to just blindly agree with you on these because I've never delved into...
So aside from Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, the other game I pre-ordered is Digimon Cyber Sleuth.
There hasn't been a Digimon game for a long time.
There probably has been.
Okay, then I'm...
known about. The last one I played was on the DS. Called
I remember
Dusk.
Yeah.
That was the last one I played, and I was disappointed that it wasn't like Pokemon. In terms of leveling up.
Okay.
Like, I was fine with the battle system and everything, but what I didn't like was, if you want to... There are, like, restrictions on leveling up, where... I'm just gonna say numbers for the sake of argument, or not argument, but you know what I mean. Like, let's say Agumon can digivolve to Greymon at, I don't know, let's say level 10, okay? But Agumon might have a max, like, he can't level up past 8. So it's like, well, how do you get to Greymon?
That is interesting.
What you have to do is you have to reset your Digimon into their previous evolution. So I think it would be like Koromon.
Okay.
And have him level up again up to Agumon. And when he digivolves into Agumon again, his level cap goes up. So you basically have to like bring them back and level them up again in order to get their next evolution. And you kind of have to keep doing that. Like
that would piss me off.
You have to like start from like their baby form, and it's like, oh, Koromon, and then it's like, well, I can't get to Agumon, so let me go back, and it's like, oh, I got to Agumon, level them up. It's like, I can't get to that one, let me start over from Agumon. It's like, it's this constant like
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, and it's this constant of that, and I'm just like, when they go back a level, it's like they get weaker. So it's just like...
You don't want to fight with them and level them up.
Yeah, and it's like, what's the point? Why can't it be Pokemon where, like, you hit a certain level, and it's like, there's no cap to it.
Well, Pokemon's not even like that anymore with some of the evolutions. Like, you have to do some crazy things that I would never even think of to evolve your Pokemon.
You don't have to bring them back down again.
No, you don't. I don't even think you could if you wanted to, but...
That's what I didn't like about the Digimon games, is the level caps where you have to, like, turn them back into their previous form and level them up again. I think it was unnecessary. Maybe people who like to grind or something like doing that. It's just, personally, I think it was a waste. You know? I think it was really stupid to do that.
It was preventing you from progressing in the game. It was just a way of artificially increasing the length of the game, in my opinion, having not played it. Not difficulty, but making the game making it a longer game, because you know how people complain when their RPGs aren't RPG enough.
So I beat the game, and I think there was an extra scenario. I got to a certain point. I got to like the bosses in the extra scenario. I was like, they were way too hard. I probably had to grind. I was like, I don't want to grind, so I'm done. So I'm really hoping Cyber Sleuth is not like that. And if it is, I'll probably just play the main story again and just like, figure it out. But I don't know. I'm just really hoping it's not like that. I just do not
Gotta get your Digimon on.
I do not like the leveling up in Digimon. I think Pokemon does it best when it comes to monsters.
What made you decide to invest in this next one if you weren't sure? Or
because it looks really cool and I've heard good things about it.
I'll have to watch some trailers.
Yeah, it looked really cool, and I was like, I haven't played Digimon in a while.
And is this a DS game, or...?
No, it was on the PS Vita, I think in Japan, maybe in America, and then they're putting it on the PS4, so we're getting it on the PS4, and I'm like, alright, I'm gonna have to get this, because as a kid, I love Digimon. And I still do, I just don't have anything other than the show, and I don't watch it, so it's just like, not that it's been dead for me, but it's been like on a hiatus for me.
Fair enough.
I've never actually been I haven't been investing in it recently, I guess. So I'm like, oh, a new game, and I've heard good things about it. Let me try it out.
Let's rekindle our love, Digimon.
Yes. I really would like to catch up with the anime, but I'm kind of behind on it.
I am so behind on my anime, so I can't even...
me too. I think that was... and Gravity Rush is the other one that I pre-ordered.
I thought Gravity...
Well, they're bringing it to the PS... They're making a sequel to it on the PS4, but they're also they're porting the Vita one to the PS4.
Remind me what Gravity Rush is, because I think I'm confusing it with another game for Vita that had the word gravity.
I don't know, because I haven't played it.
Oh, okay, fine.
But I know there's this girl named Kat, and she has a cat.
Oh, okay, then we are on the same page, because this is the one I was thinking of.
What I don't like was you can only get it digitally, but what I do like is that Amazon, if you pre-order it on Amazon, you get a physical copy. So I'm like,
that's
cool.
nice.
Because it's all about physical copies. You gotta have it.
Unfortunately, it's more and more difficult to get physical copies of things, especially when I buy like throwback games, because it's not like I can play my PlayStation 2 or 3 games on my 4.
It's nice to have a digital library, but I don't want it to be the only means of getting a game.
To be fair, I also don't want to have to keep every system I ever buy. I like to be able to get rid of them, and right now I'm in a position...
I have everything from the Sega Genesis stuff.
Because I live in an apartment that's like 700 square feet, and I don't have room for shit.
Okay. Fair enough.
There you go. Throw down, real life.
Put it in a closet?
Let's talk. I'm out of closet space. I have boots and coats and girl things to keep in there.
You don't need that. You don't need clothes. It's like
debatable.
The same shirt every
I think
day.
That's subject to everyone's opinion there.
But then again, I'm a guy who doesn't care too much about fashion, so I have for the longest time I had one pair of sneakers. Now I have work shoes, sneakers, and boots. It's just like, I switch through the same clothes all the time.
Everyone's different with it. My boyfriend is not a fashionista by any means, but he has 800 t-shirts. It's like I never see the same t-shirt again.
Well, see, whatever gets put on, whatever I put on in the top of my drawer.
That's what he says. He says the same thing.
It's like I have to dig for something new. I haven't worn this shirt in a while, and I was like, I want something video game related for this recording.
I am repping my Portal hoodie for the purposes of the podcast.
See, I played the second half of Portal. I never played the beginning of it.
Portal's awesome. Portal 2 might be better than Portal 1, though. I
never played it. I want to.
Add that to your queue.
Oh God.
Do it. Peer pressure.
Since the last time we recorded, I also played. Was it Triforce Heroes? Have you played Triforce Heroes?
I've seen playthroughs of it. It's not my favorite kind of Zelda. I never was into the chibi Link Zelda games and the handheld ones. I've always been more of like a canon, Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess.
It's a lot more fun when you play with people.
Okay.
When you play by yourself, certain missions become a lot easier.
When you play alone?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then other missions become a lot easier when you play with people. Like, let's say one of your missions is time-based, like, beat the level within a certain amount of time. Then you need extra people, because the way you treat the other two links is they kind of become statues, and you have to switch between them. So you move one at a time, you're not going to beat the time. But then missions that are difficult, in terms of, enemies being difficult, all the links share the same health.
Oh, that sucks.
So when you play by yourself, the statues don't take damage. So it's easier for that,
That's really interesting. It sounds...
So some missions are easier by yourself, other missions are easier with people.
I like that. What I like about the game, even though I've never been into the handheld Zeldas, is that from everything I've seen, it really embraces the puzzle part of Zelda, and that's always been one of my favorite bits
I'm
of those
one of those
games.
People who really like stories, and I get all into chronology. So
do you have a copy of the Hyrule Historia?
Yes, but when they made the game, when they were making the game, they were like, "Yeah, we don't know where this goes. We'll figure it out later," and that pissed me off so much. And then towards the end, they're like, "Yeah, it's a direct sequel to A Link Between Worlds," and you're like, the style is completely different, but it's the same Link. It's just like, what happened? Did he shrink?
That is odd. It's odd that they'd say that.
The way I treat it is you're kind of, when it comes to Zelda and the different styles, I kind of treat it as you're viewing kind of like maybe listening to a story from a different author, or like somebody's telling you a legend, but then it's like somebody else tells you the sequel. It's kind of just like, I kind of view it as the lens to which you're looking at the story. So it's like, never
bothered to think about the chronology of the Zelda games too hard, and I love Zelda. Like, I was a Zelda kid. I grew up on those games. It just, even reading the Hyrule Historia, I sometimes wonder if they just kind of were like, oh, we should probably come up with some rationale for why these games...
I don't even know if it's... I don't know who is in charge of making Hyrule Historia, but I don't think Nintendo made that. I think it was whoever made the book kind of put that together, with maybe some help from Nintendo. Though I'm not sure.
I'll have to look into that.
Don't quote me on that. But yeah, they say in the book, like right in the beginning, this is subject to change based on any new information that comes out.
Sure.
So, and there's already there's kind of like plot holes or things that don't match up.
I don't think it needs to. In my opinion, I don't think it needs to, because I really enjoyed the games for like whatever they are, for just the experience. Like Majora's Mask, it's a complete one-off.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of my favorite Zelda games.
I really like the split timeline theory that became official, but I don't like how they came up with a third one where Link dies. It's like that never happened.
That's a fan theory, though, in as far as I'm aware. That's just the internet talking.
No, that's in the Hyrule Historia.
Really?
Yeah, it splits into 3 timelines.
I'll have to check that out.
I liked, originally I like to see it as, it's a split that you caused. It's not like a multiverse theory like what if, but it's a split that you caused, which is true because at the end of Ocarina of Time, you turn back into a kid.
Yes.
So, you have the timeline where you were an adult, where Link disappeared because he turned back into a kid. That continues on, and that leads into Wind Waker because Link disappeared. And then you have when he turns back into a kid, and then he warns Zelda about what's going to happen with Ganondorf. And then that's the child era timeline that leads into Majora's Mask and then Twilight Princess.
But even then, it is kind of a multiverse, even if you follow that timeline, because it reuses the character models and.
It's a multiverse in the sense where the player, or like Link created the split timeline, I think. So then the Hyrule Historia makes a third split where Link dies when he fights against Ganon. And I'm like, but that's not something that happens in the game.
I mean, it does, but you come back to life, yeah.
But it's not. But it's not a timeline split. It's like, oh, you died. It's like, it's kind of like, well, let's redo that and try again. So I was watching this video a while ago where someone was trying to explain the split, and it makes sense if you don't say Link dies against Ganon, but it makes sense where because the way time travel works in that game is not it's not like you go to a certain point in time and then you come back a certain amount of time to a certain time. It's a certain amount of time passes. So if there's point A and 7 years go by and you're at point B, then time is still flowing. So if you go back in time, whatever amount of time you spent 7 years later is how much time progressed as a child.
Okay.
So Link was missing for that chunk of time where he was in
that
same amount of time,
about.
Because that's how it would work. Otherwise, there'd be multiple Links running around.
Fair enough.
So it's like he'll disappear, and when he becomes an adult, he's missing for that chunk of time until he comes back as a kid. So, there was this person was saying that when you go back in time and get the lens of truth, or you do all these different things, and then when you go back into the future, it's an alternate future because those items
now you have had it the whole time.
Yeah, because now it's like you changed something in the past. That item is not in the well anymore. So the timeline you left behind is the one where Ganon takes over, but Link's not there. So that's the one that goes into this third one where Link supposedly loses. But instead of him losing, it's just, he disappeared because of this thing he changed in the past, and Ganon took over.
I like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I like that too, because it solves the problem of saying, oh, Link never did that. So, Link never caused that split, so how can he die and succeed at the same time?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, you actively removed yourself from this timeline before fixing something because you had to go back in time. So it's like that timeline where I think it's called the downfall of the hero era or timeline is makes to me, I like that, and it makes sense where that's a result of you changing something. It's kind of like the forgotten era. It's like, well, let me get something, and I'm having a hard time explaining it, but I think you understand what I mean.
I do. Understand what you mean, and I think it's a really good way to.
It's kind of like
compensate for the time travel and to compensate for.
And it's also a result of your actions. It's like if I go back in time, I'm going to change the future, but you never really stop to think. Does that future does that timeline get overwritten?
Yeah.
Or is it a new branch? And it kind of treats it as, well, a continuation of the one you left behind. And I think it becomes way more interesting.
I'll have to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it was one. I don't know the guy's video. I don't know the guy's name.
I'm sure I can do some snooping and find some stuff.
Just type in Zelda timeline explanation or something. I don't remember, but I read that and I was like, I think I'm going to make that my headcanon because it's way better.
Of all this shit that there is to believe, this is the best shit here.
Yeah, it's the best shit.
Well said.
I don't think... I think the only other thing I played was Pokemon Picross, which was that free-to-play game.
Yes, okay.
On the 3DS, which I fell for like a sucker and spent money. But in my defense, I like to see it as free-to-play as more of a demo. And it's like, well, if you want to spend the money, you're basically like, well, I like that demo, let me buy the game.
Yeah, and it's not like it's in your face about it being free-to-play.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you want to do. Like,
that's true.
I think there was an energy bar where you basically have to stop playing for the day because you don't have enough energy.
See, the other thing is I never sat there and just played and played and played because it was
Okay.
always like I have 5 minutes while I'm waiting for my water to
Yeah.
boil, or I have 5 minutes while I'm waiting
Yeah.
for the bus or something, you know?
So you can actually, buy spend a certain amount of money to basically have infinite energy, so you can just keep playing.
Got it.
So I guess it kind of depends on if you treat a free-to-play game as a demo, and if you want to spend money, you're kind of like buying.
It's like you bought the game, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I treat it. So I actually just beat Picross last night. I didn't finish doing all the missions and stuff. I don't know if I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little disappointed with the murals. Some of the missions you get a piece of a mural.
Okay.
It's like a puzzle piece, and it becomes a Picross game to play. And when you collect all those pieces, it makes a giant picture. Mm-hmm. So the pictures were Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre, and I was disappointed that you couldn't use them after you got the. I thought I was going to be able to use them after I completed the puzzle.
It's kind of a bummer.
And I was like, oh, it's just a picture. I didn't unlock
my
them.
prize is a picture.
Yeah, I was like, oh, really? I spent all that time? Whatever.
If I had a nickel every time I said that.
Yeah, I would have 1 nickel. But yeah, I think that's everything I've been playing. I might be missing 1 or 2 things here or there that I just
I'm going to
don't
find
remember.
out and come after you if I found out that
Shovel
there's
Knight. Shovel Knight I bought and played
Okay.
on the 3DS. Which
And how are you
awesome.
liking that? I like that they put it out for 3DS.
I beat that a while ago.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the free DLC so I can play as Spectre Knight and King Knight and gender-swapped Shovel Knight.
That's fancy.
Yeah, I think they gender-swap all the characters, so I'm just like interested to see what they look like gender-swapped.
That's really fun.
Yeah, so is he going to be a really short she Shovel Knight? I don't know. I mean, I don't care. I just want to see what they all look like.
Yeah. I like that idea.
They can't... I feel like they can't, unless they really get crazy with redesigning, if they're going to kind of have the same
General
armor
look,
on,
yeah.
they can't really get away with being like, oh, Shovel Knight's a girl, so now she's going to be super sexy, because wouldn't she still wear that hulking armor? You know? So it's like, you don't see Shovel Knight.
I would prefer there not be a sexy Shovel Knight.
Yeah, well.
We can leave that to Rule 34.
I think a lot of people would prefer there would be, but...
I have admittedly been that person that said, I'm making my character a female because if I have to stare at an ass for 80 hours, I'd rather it be a nice ass, but I've said that.
People would argue with you and say that's wrong of you.
Well, you were just saying people would rather have a sexy Shovel Knight, and I was like,
I'm not saying
guess...
I would argue with you. I'm saying people would, because people are ridiculous.
And I'm ridiculous.
You shouldn't be able to do that.
I can look at whoever's butt I want to look at. It's a free country.
I know. I agree with you. I'm just saying people are ridiculous, and they would argue that because it's the internet.
Don't you love it?
Cough, cough. Tumblr. Cough.
Now the YouTube comments will pile up, calling us all kinds of names.
We got some views.
Yeah. High five. Controversy.
Speaking of which, I think we can move on to not necessarily a news section, but if there's anything coming up that you're looking forward to. I think I spoke my piece already when I was talking about Naruto and Digimon and Gravity Rush.
Well, it's not all about you. I'm looking forward to games too.
I know. I'm just saying I think I spoke my piece.
So I'm really excited. I know we were talking a lot about the Souls games. I'm super excited that Dark Souls 3 is happening, and I've been inundating myself with, Reddit posts about the game and videos and stuff, and I'm somewhat excited that the Magic Bar is coming back.
Nice.
Because...
Was it missing in 2?
I mean, there was a Magic Bar in Demon Souls, and then in Dark Souls 1 and 2, there was no...
Oh, right, there was a number.
Yes.
How many times you could use the spell.
So there is now a magic meter, once again. Okay. And just looking at it, you can definitely see where... I know that Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne were being developed simultaneously, but by completely different teams. But you can kind of see the cross-feeding and where the design of Bloodborne has influenced you know, some of the architecture and elements in Dark Souls 3, and you can actually see a little bit of Demon Souls in there in some of the areas, and that's kind of exciting to me. So, obviously, we'll keep getting more about that, but Hype Dog says get hype about this game. And then the other game that I'm super pumped about, which I think is coming out much sooner than Dark Souls 3, I think it's in the next month or two, The Witness is coming out.
Okay, I don't know anything about that either.
So, I don't know if you ever heard of Braid.
What is it?
It's called Braid. It was a Steam indie game.
No,
it was like a puzzle
Steam
platformer.
or PC games.
Okay. Well,
Do
it was.
you?
I do.
Okay. Right.
I have a Mac and I have a Lenovo gaming laptop, and I dabble in the PC games. I like console gaming as an experience better generally, but we could have this argument whenever. I just think it's easier to get games for PC, and it's better. It's easier to get them on a discount, and depending on what you're looking to play, especially if you're into indie games, there's more of a wealth of things to do on PC.
Yeah.
But it was a puzzle platformer, and you know, a lot of hand-drawn art, and it was really beautiful, and it had a great story. And there's a documentary that looks at the game a little bit. Actually, it's called Indie Game the Movie, and it looks at Braid, Fez. Have you heard of Fez?
Heard of, but
we'll have to talk about that some other time.
Okay.
When there's more time. Fez, and it looks at Super Meat Boy, and I don't know if you've heard of any of those.
Oh yeah. Okay, I've heard of them. I've seen Super Meat Boy, but I haven't played it.
So it kind of follows the development of Fez and Super Meat Boy, and it has, I think the guy's name is Jonathan Blow. He's the guy that designed Braid and is working on The Witness. And it has kind of him talking about his experience, because Braid was like the first like huge commercially successful indie game that sold like tons of copies and was just a big hit. And you know, so The Witness almost looks like Myst, but way prettier, and it's just kind of a puzzle on an island game. You should watch some trailers because it's absolutely beautiful, and it's coming out as a downloadable game on PS4, and I'm just excited to explore the environments and see the art and fiddle around with some puzzles. It looks like a relaxing puzzle experience. So
all right. I like puzzle games. Like,
says the guy who invested in Pokemon Picross.
Picross. I was gonna say Picross. Okay, cool. Do you know when those come out?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Dark Souls is late. Sorry, yes, Dark Souls 3 is late in 2016. So I think.
Oh, really? I thought it was like next month or something.
Well, now I have to look that up.
Unless it got delayed.
Dark Souls.
I thought it was early 2016, like February, March.
Oh, it does say March. Oh, wow. Why did I think it was so much later?
I don't know.
Well, that's good news for us. And The Witness is coming out, I think it came out today. Hot damn, there you go. Fresh off the press.
Already.
The Witness came out today. I know what I'm doing tomorrow night.
What is today?
26th.
January 26th, 2016.
We should probably say that at the beginning of the podcast.
In the beginning. There you go.
Remind people where they are, what time it is.
Today is Tuesday. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I think, let's see here. The last thing I wanted to talk about was answering fan questions / comments, whatever. And we got one from someone I actually know, Steven Lisevsky. He says, oh, this was based on something I had said in a previous video, which I don't quite remember.
Great. That's a good start.
Says, hi, so a Sonic game in the arcade is Sonic Fighters. I can't quite remember what this was pertaining to. I might have said something. Maybe I said something that there was or wasn't Sonic arcade game. I don't remember what I said. Which could explain why Sonic characters were hanging out with them. Again, I don't remember what I had said. But not the good graphics from the movie, LOL. Question: if you had a choice to be in the reality of a video game, which would you both choose, and what would your character be in that world? Oh, interesting question. Do you want to start?
Oh my gosh, I can't even... Considering the fact that I've been playing all this Bloodborne, that's certainly not my answer. I just have, like, horrendously dark video games that I've been playing that I would want absolutely no part of whatsoever.
I've been thinking about this on and off. just because it was a question that I read a while ago and just, you know, kept thinking like, huh, I do wonder. And I think I'd have to say the world of Pokemon.
Okay.
I would probably be the greatest trainer ever.
I think that was everyone's dream in like elementary and middle school when the Pokemon games started to hit big. They wanted to be the greatest Pokemon master.
I think it's the one world that's probably the safest in terms of who you are as a character.
Okay.
I mean, you're not living in a world like Bloodborne or something where you have to train yourself to fight.
Yes.
And maybe that's me being a bit lazy.
I mean, you don't want to think that you're going to last 20 whole minutes in this video game world. You'd ideally want to live out your days in this video game world, doing as you please. And
it seems like Pokemon is a type of world, or it pretty much is a type of world, where fighting is more like sparring. The only time it's really serious is like when you have a criminal organization, like Team whatever.
Yes, Team insert noun here.
Insert name depending on region.
Yeah, I could get behind being in a Pokemon game.
I think I would be a trainer in Pokemon.
I'm going to take this question not seriously at all. I would be in Katamari Damacy, and I would be the king of the cosmos. And I would have peons do my bidding and make me planets that I could blow up if they didn't please me.
Well, it says, and what would your character be in that world? Yeah, I guess. I was going to... I interpreted it as what would your character be like what would your position be?
Gotcha.
But now I guess it's open for would you be a specific character?
Well, I just interpreted it how I pleased.
I guess you could be the king of the cosmos.
Well, I could also just be Cosmo royalty and
not get rolled up into a giant ball.
Yes, as long as I was not one of the people being rolled into the ball. As long as you're not a sacrifice. If I was pushing the ball or criticizing the ball, I'd be okay with that.
See, I haven't played that game. I think I've tried it, or seen like I know what it is.
There's a level of addicting to that game that I cannot express adequately.
I don't know enough about it to be able to say, you know...
You don't need to know much except for that you roll up the entire friggin' world in a big sticky ball.
Pretty much. So that's it for questions. It was one question. Who knows if we'll have another one for the next episode.
Oh man, if anyone is listening to this, please write a question for the next episode. Yeah, as long as it's not math, we're good.
I'm pretty good with math, or I used to be.
Oh, you could handle that one then.
I went to art school and stopped using math.
That'll happen. And I went off and became an English major and stopped doing math, so there we go.
I was pretty good at math. Not to toot my own horn.
Back in the day. Back in the day.
Back in my day, I was good at math. So, yeah, I think that's all for this week, and hopefully we can continue this every week. We're thinking every Tuesday. Part of the idea of getting multiple people involved was if one of us can't record, we still have some other people. But yeah, maybe we'll be back with another episode next week on Tuesday. I mean, it's Tuesday now, so who knows if this will be up tonight or Wednesday. But maybe we'll be back next week.
Expect us. Expect us in the future.
No one expects the GG Inquisition.
Dun, dun,
dun. All right, guys. We are signing off.
Adios.
Ta-ta. Bye-bye.